Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Aqibatun lil Mustaqim. Wala uhwana ila ala dalimeen. Muhammadan huwa Sayyidina Makbubana kana Sayyid Mursaleen. Salawatu Allah Ta'ala wa salamuhu alayhi. Highly silent with Beacom, my dear brothers and sisters, and everywhere you may be. And as promised to some who are looking forward to hearing me talk about the Dogon people, well, today will be it. I've been wanting to do this for months, but this history with them is very complex and it's very lengthy for obvious reasons. And I will do this in perhaps 3 segments. And that way I can get it done, because my motto is this: I will not disrespect our ancestral brothers and their accomplishments by trying to mention them in 3 or 4 minutes, like on some other stations. I just cannot do that, because their accomplishments are worthwhile, and we should get down into the nuts and bolts of our history. And this is one of the fallacies that we have, is that we do not pay too much attention to our accomplishments. And so we disrespect our ancestral brothers and sisters and their accomplishments by talking 1 minute, 2 minutes, and then go off, because you come on not understanding who they were, and then you leave 2 minutes after I get finished talking. I'm 2 minutes, some go 8 minutes, and then that's it. You're still confused. You don't know who they are, and leave you wondering. And I don't like that, because we've been slighted for so many years. So I am going to embark on probably about three series episodes about this, because it is very, very complex. And me as a Muslim, I'm on shaky ground in some regards, because I'm going to be talking about people that many of them are not Muslims today, but they are still our ancestral brothers, and they still are our African brothers. So we cannot say that they're not part of us. They are our brothers in humanity and our ancestral brothers. But of course, if they're not Muslims, we can't say they're among the Muslim Brotherhood. But on the same token, I have to be careful, because things I'm going to be touching, I have to always remember that Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's name always has to be supreme and paramount. And I have to always remember that, because I'll get into subjects later that's going to be really in depth, and it's going to be talking about stuff. So this also is for those who are very interested in learning about our ancestral brothers and their aptitude for the interstellar space. It's incredible. Okay, incredible. Now, I'm not talking about them going to school and getting a PhD at Oxford or Harvard in the United States. I'm talking about something was given to these people. Who gave it to them? I'll get into that. Someone was given this information. And we have current stuff that's going on now as well, which is also a phenomenon. So the African phenomenon is being whitewashed, as you heard me talk about our history and going into Spain, which we call Andalus, and what happened to that. I went into a series about that. I showed you how they whitewashed our brothers in this regard. Now we move into the East again to start it off, which is Kemt, or Messer in Arabic, and English, Egypt, and how this has been a contention for the last 3 years. I think we've seen some very heated conversations, and then we have drawn out some of our African brothers who are lighter than us, who now proclaim they're not African, that they are Arab, when they're not Arab, and they say that they're white. And so therefore they said that the ancient Egyptians were like themselves. I covered a little bit last week talking about this, about how I'm helping you to decipher this. When you see these people get on YouTube or whatever, and they start talking about these mummies, well, you got to remember something. They were slick. They only took the mummies of those who died, who were invaders or colonizers, and they lived there and died there, and had families there. They died there, and then those who, after Kemp was long gone, who came later after, again, the Greeks came, the Romans came, and so forth. They start taking that type of DNA to use that as saying that the ancient Egyptians were white, were Tuba, but they didn't touch the royal mummies. That's the interesting, and their families, and some of the others, their servants, and so forth and so on, and some of the population. They didn't touch that for obvious reasons, and I told you why. But I'll get more into this today, inshallah ta'ala. Let me see who's here. Give my respects to him. How you doing, my dear brother Kwesi? How you doing? Thank you for showing up, my dear brother. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much, my dear brother, for showing up today. So we're going to start also. We have to mention something about our new president in Senegal, because he has showed up and showed out. He's given some beautiful, eloquent speeches. I heard him here last week, I think it was, speaking, reciting the Quran beautifully, beautiful recitation. And he's a astute young African leader. We're starting to see this. So we're starting to see this upgrade from the old guard, from the people who, the old in my generation and right under my generation, who just have failed the continent. Okay, now we're starting to see more robust African leaders taking over the countries, and we need this. I think this step is going to lead us into, as you heard me talk about, because our Prophet ﷺ said that the Islamic banner will rise again, and it will encompass the whole world. We're starting to see that because the conversions to Islam are off the charts, even in South America, in Bolivia, Brazil, Venezuela. I mean, it's happening everywhere. Even Argentina, you have whites, white Latins who are coming to Islam. We're starting to see this. And again, it's not by the sword. It's by invitation, and subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one who can make Muslims. I can't, you can't, none of us says. He tells us that in the Quran. We can only assist them to help to become Muslims. We can assist them in learning Islam. But subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who makes the Muslims. We should understand that as well. Okay, let me see what we got here. Oh, how you doing, my dear brother? How you doing? I appreciate you coming in today. We're not going to get into the here too much about the Arabs. We know what they are. I will cover them in another time when I'm talking about the Arab belt, because we need to cover that. And it's true, because there's a lot of contention. I talked about this about a year, I think it's even more than that, how fast time has gone, about the Arabs and their attitudes and what's happening and so forth and so on. Yes, we understand that. And you remember something you heard me talk about the Palestinians. The Palestinians were granted, membership inside the AU. Why is that? Huh? Think about this. The AU, the Palestinians are regarded as an African people, even though you see them today as light-skinned because of so many years, so many centuries of the Romans being there. But we know that many of their underlying their heritage is African, and we know they have a sizable African population that they don't show you about. If you saw my program here about 3-4 months ago, I talked about one of the African brothers, Palestinians, who was killed by the Israelis. So anyway, that's for another day. And you see what my brother here has to say. Our Africans and yes, we have that. I'll get into this to prove, because now we have a lot of contention, and I'll get into this because in order for us to talk about the Dogon people, we got to go back to ancient Egypt where everything began. Because I'm more convinced today that the Fulani, the Hausa, the Bambara, the Wolof, all of these groups came from Egypt. Some said that the Fulani people came from Europe and Turkey. That's hogwash. That's not right, because we're going to cover some DNA and we're going to cover some genotypes also. That's not from Turkey and Europe. It is no way. But I'll get into that. I'm way ahead of the story. So please bear with me today, brothers and sisters, on this as we get started, because I'll be on these episodes will be 3 to cover this real well. Okay. So we look at our president here. I'm going to start with a short thing about our president, new president here. in Senegal. He's got 2 wives, and that's I've read some statements of people talking about this, and again, because of the modern woman and their hypocritical stance about man having 2 wives or 3 wives or 4 wives, the contention about that in Islam and so forth and so on. But then they seem to forget about the other matters of the woman who goes and after another man's husband and she's not married to him. See, so it's a catch-22. But our astute new president is very, very astute, and we should applaud him for taking over, because he's another young African leader who is going to promote himself and his country to the best of his ability. But we got problems here, brothers and sisters, and I got to mention that. We have problems here because our brother here was talking about the French, made some eloquent speeches talking about the French here the other day by saying that about the French and their problems, and he wants them out, and he wants them to stop meddling in their affairs. You got to understand something. We all know this. The Tuba, whether it's the British or the French or the Americans or the Germans or the Belgium, they're not going to stop, because for them, they've gotten our resources. We have given our resources away to them. They have taken human resources from us for centuries. So you think just because we told them to get out that they just going to say okay and leave us alone? No, they're going to kill. They're going to do anything they can, because they have taken the riches from Africa for so long, and they've installed puppet leaders in my generation. And this is why we're in a hell of a mess, because on this continent, and our leaders of my generation has no gumption and fortitude. They only say yes sir boss, and they didn't even fight the Tubab. They let the Tubab run roughshod through the country, stealing all our wealth. Now the tides are starting to turn. We got young leaders that say, hey, enough is enough. My understanding is now in Chad, they're in the process now of throwing the Americans out as well. See, so we're starting to see the ball rolling now to getting the Tubab out. Now, again, when we talk about brothers and sisters, we're not talking about the tourists. We're not talking about the ones who don't fight Islam. We're not talking about the correspondents who come there to do stories and so forth and so on. But we're talking about those of the apparatus who are fighting Muslims, and so forth and so on. This is what we're talking about here. So our brother is astute, and here is the problem, brothers and sisters, and then I'll get into the Dogon people and so forth and so on. But I had to mention this. He has not talked about the agreement that's still binding on Senegal. Remember what you heard me talk about. It's the American Security Program. The former president signed off on this, giving the Americans the leeway, control of the military and the security apparatus. You heard me talk about this now for weeks. It's a killer, because all agreements allow the Tubab Americans to do what they want in the country, commit crimes, and those they hire also are allowed to commit crimes under their name and under their command. They go and do something to a strong, devout Muslim, and then the police go to get him. All he has to do is say, look, I work for the guy at the U.S. Embassy. They let him go. This is under the agreement. It's mind-boggling that our leaders in my generation would accept such madness, but they did. But this binding contract, he didn't mention. They still have control. So I don't know what he's going to do. I'm waiting for his word to tell us what he's about to do about this agreement, because the Americans are there, and the Americans are still controlling the security apparatus. They're still controlling it. So we're going to see what our young president is going to do with that, but I wish him luck. But again, brothers and sisters, I have to reiterate, I don't care how brilliant our young leaders coming up. They read the Quran, they talk good, without putting Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's governance in the country, without mentioning his name first. Meaning, when you get up to talk to the people, you say Bismillah Rahman Rahim. This is the start of putting Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's name before for everything and putting his governance. We don't hear that. And it's going to be a problem if they don't institute some parts of the Sharia and give, like I said, in a 3-year increment, so that people get used to it. He's going to fail. And our astute president already is getting bad guidance. He was told, what to do about the economic. He's running right back to the same two-bob system that has killed the countries and killed all the African states, made them dependent on the two-bob, on their economic system and their loans. He's going back to that system. He's not using the Sharia law and using the Islamic system, and he's going to fail. You can guarantee that it's going to fail, because subhanahu wa ta'ala's government should be governed by any Muslim ruler. It's got to be in order to save us. And you see what has happened. We keep changing presidents after presidents. They go talk good, then they run to the same financial markets to go kill the country. That promotes corruption and everything else, and allows the two-bob to control us. And our young brother president here, Senegal, saying he wants to control the country and he wants to see Africa free, but yet and still he's not said anything about the Americans and their security program. That's very troubling for as I'm concerned. Okay. Here we go. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brother Mustafa. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, my dear brother, for showing up. Jazakallah khairan. Okay. Now we can start. Now we're going to start now on the topic at hand. And brothers and sisters, there's been some things happening here of late that is showing a return of the phenomenon, the African phenomenon, not only on the continent, but outside the continent, but Africans. I'll get into that. Okay, now, okay. The Dogon people, and I'll show you something where they're at, and so forth. Everyone who knows about the Dogon people, they're in Mali, present-day Mali today. And the Dogon people and this phenomenal history is spectacular, no doubt about it. All the Africans need to study them and who they are and where they came from and what happened to them and when they settled in present-day Mali. This is important. Why I say that? Because they left Egypt. And they left Egypt under Tawheed, meaning oneness of God. But along the way, they vacated that and became animus. And some of the Dogon people, you got to remember something, not all of the Dogon people have this unique gift, talking about the interstellar space. Not all of them. There's a segment of them that possess this knowledge. But of course, it's passed down through all the clans. But the holders of it are a select group of Dogon people who pass this down. Not all possess this. See, and so we have to say, what happened to them when they settled in present-day Mali? They came out of Egypt and they were under Tawheed, and then they leave Tawheed, just like the Fulani, the Hausa, the Bambara, there's the Mende, the Mendinka, all left out of Egypt. No doubt. I'll get more into that. All left Egypt and settled in the West. But something happened to these people. And I'll get more into that to make them the way they were. What language do they speak? They have a dialect. But here is again the Fulani connection. Here we go again. Just about everything that goes on in West Africa, the Fulani factor is in it. So that is an interesting part. How were their findings uncovered in modern times? How do we understand the Dogon people? The Europeans came in the early 1800s because they've been hearing about an African tribe that possessed astonishing knowledge of the interstellar space. And many of them could not believe this. So they ventured into Mali, central Mali, and to these areas, secluded, cave-like areas, and they began to talk with them in earnest about their beliefs and what, and how they came up with this knowledge. This is how it was uncovered. As these European scientists begin to write, then they begin to spread this information to the world. And we're still talking about it today. And and the other question we have to ask too, brothers and sisters, is the Dogon people. The other issue here of the phenomenon is Timbuktu. We know that the great university there and the centuries of their scholarship. We know that they had a high aptitude for the interstellar space as well. And the question I have, since we know the most outstanding of the professors there in in Timbuktu was Fulani. We understand that. Okay, we know that. And Mende and Mendika, well, we had a lot of Fulani professors, especially Islamic sciences. We had that. But the interstellar space, we still don't have who they were and how much knowledge they had, which they said it was great. And none of us can have access to the documents, but for a reason. You can rest assured, if they were white in Tubab, this stuff would be all over the place. But since they're black and they can't try to whitewash it to make the Mali people into white, they cannot. So when the racist power structure cannot whiten a history of ours, then they try to ignore it and make it obscure. And it's wrong. See, so we have to ask that question about that. What happened? See, and how they were uncovered. The European scientists, and then other scientists begin to come and begin to learn about them. It's fascinating. And I will show you that. What is the African phenomenon? This is about the past and present scholarship of gifted African individuals who possess extraordinary knowledge, which was verified by modern scientific methods, and they remained obscure. Now, what I mean by this, as you hear me talking about the Dogon people now, how many people understand who they are? Not many. They pushed it under the rug. All of these great scientists in ancient Kemet, they kept it under the rug. How about those who we know now to be Yoruba? We know that. We know many of them to be Wolof. We know many of them to be Jolof. We know many of them to be Fulani. All came out of Egypt. We know this. See? And now, here's the second part to the phenomenon I was talking about. Brothers and sisters, I don't know if you've been noticing something. You guys can verify this on one aspect. You know Terrence Howard, the famous actor inside the United States, light-skinned brother. He's I forgot that program he was on. It ran for many Power, or whatever he calls it. He played a gangster, very nice-looking brother who's playing that. And anyway, what I was trying to say is that Terrence Howard, it wasn't Power. What was the name of that? I can't think the name. It was about the music industry, so I can't think the brother's name. Anyway, most of you guys probably know because I've been out of the United States for a long, long time. Terrence Howard came up with some bizarre knowledge without any schooling. He came on TV, and of course, the white racists went crazy. The genocidal racists went crazy, calling him the N-word. He's a stupid this, and he need to crawl back in the hole or go back to Africa or do this and that and go to school. But finally, one or two scientists came to bat for him. They were Tubab. I think one was Jew, or both, and he said his calculations were correct. Now it's starting to die down. How did Terrence Howard suddenly come up with this? He quit the industry of acting. He stopped, but he possessed this knowledge. Where did he come from? How did he get it so fast? And he's dealing with stuff that's I don't want to get into, because that's another subject. That's a deep subject. But energy, fascinating. Even I learned a lot from that. Where did he get it? Here's another episode where I'm talking about the African phenomenon. Subhanahu wa ta'ala is starting to put, because we were the most gifted of all learned men at one time. That's why the Europeans, the Tubab, came to study under us. When they came to Egypt, the Egyptians helped to develop the Greek, civilization. The Greek historians admit this. So Terrence Howard came up with this information. I'll give you another one, and I'll move on. There's a child, a young boy, 12 years old, preteen or teenager. He's Muslim. He cannot speak Arabic. Something happened to this young boy. Within 4 months, he memorized the Quran in the Quranic text. He didn't go to school. Suddenly he came out from school, he got the book and began to read it. I'm talking about the Quran, and began to recite it. Who gave him this? It wasn't me, it wasn't you. He didn't go to school. He didn't study the Quranic sciences. He's 12 years old. How did he memorize the Quran in 4 months? He doesn't speak Arabic. And suddenly begin to recite it. How? That's the second episode. The third, and I'll stop. There's a young girl, and I think there's another one too in Nigeria. There's another African-American girl. She's 12. No, she just turned 13. She's going to medical school at the university now. Interesting, isn't it? Where did she get this knowledge to be this brilliant? She's only 12. She just turned 13. 13 years old, brothers and sisters. This is the African phenomenon, because we had this knowledge way back centuries ago. We had this. We have brilliant Africans who had all this knowledge. And subhanahu wa ta'ala, it had to come from subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he bestowed it on the African people before they began to do the bad things of studying rocks. Studying, worshiping rocks, fish, animals in the forest, animals in the desert, all kind of other things. And subhanahu wa ta'ala made us blind. But he's starting to help us now again to come back. And we're starting to see this. There's this genius from Nigeria, this young woman who went, I think, young girl, went to Europe and spanked everybody in physics in some contest. Not by a little, she spanked them with her knowledge. We're starting to see this. How did she get it? This is what I'm asking. How did she get it? How did this boy, young boy, African-American in the United States, who cannot speak Arabic, suddenly at the early age of 12 years old, pick up the Quran and start to read it which is difficult? Okay, I know. I read the Quranic text. It's not easy. He memorized it in 4 months. He's a boy. How did he get this knowledge? Terrence Howard didn't go to school to talk about this kinetic energy, which blew me away when I saw it. And I was confused. And I saw some of the early tapes. The two Bobs sitting in the crowd. The brothers wasn't laughing, but many of the two Bobs, they laughing, calling them names, and so on and so on. You know what I mean? You know how they can be. Denouncing him until these other scientists said, no, he's right on. How did Terrence Howard get this suddenly? He quit the industry of acting and start to take this up. Where did you get the knowledge for this? It is so mind-boggling, the calculations. That's why no one could understand it except top-notch scientists. See, so this is, again, brothers and sisters. Here we go. How you doing, my dear brother? I haven't seen you in a long time. Thank you. Thank you for showing up. I know you're very busy. I saw one of your programs again the other day. I don't know if you were saying you're traveling or something. I can't recall now, but I don't want to announce your business. But anyway, glad to see you here, my dear brother. Thank you very much. I know you've been very, very busy. You're a very, very busy man. Thank you for showing up. So the African, now, Part of the phenomenon of the African mystery schools, they were not only in Egypt, there were other places as well. And we start to uncover works, carvings, cave drawings, written documents in hieroglyphics. This is something. If you look, now that's for my Fulani brothers and sisters. If you look at the Fulani script, there's a brother who's did this analysis. All have the similarity with the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. Same with Ge'ez, which has come from Ethiopia. We know it as Habasha. In the olden times, it was called Nubia. You look at all these other scripts, there's a whole bunch of them. All are very similar. How can that be? They had to come from one source. That means they were there in Africa. And then they began to migrate south and then to the west. And I'll show you this in a bit. The other phenomenon which supplements is the DNA. Brothers, sisters, the DNA has now, remember what I was telling you before about what some of the cleverness of many of the scientists, the Egyptian scientists who made millions from his discoveries of tombs of the ancient Egyptians and so forth, the mummies of the royal families and all that. And I remember here about, I forgot how many years ago, I saw him in a tape and I was very angry with him because he's a brown-skinned Egyptian. And he first used to say that the Egyptians were white, but then he was wrong because there's testing. Then he came back and said, yes, they're black, but he said they were not Nigger. He said this on national TV, and Mubarak, who was the president at the time, told him to shut up because he was very racist what he said. And I saw his face and I saw what he said. He said they were not that word. And the man who was interviewing him was a Tubab European. He laughed, but I didn't think it was funny. He's been one of the instrument tools of the devil by saying that the Egyptians were white, but now he said they were black, but they're not African, and they're not, he calls the N-word. But he's been blown away now, see, by the testing. We have the testing, and we have mailing testing. We have a lot of different testing now that goes against what he had said. We have the African migration from Kempt due to wars, invasions, culture, racial classes, clashes each time in history. And here's the phenomena, again, African phenomena. The Africans stayed they were in the north. But when the Romans and other invaders begin to come in, the Black Africans begin to move south. That's why we see today the northern tier are much lighter, because some stayed mixed, yes, but then because of all of the people that came in from Western Europe, Eastern Europe, and even from Turkey, even some from Iran, they came into North Africa. They began to settle there, right? And then the blacks moved further south. They did this in ancient Kempt as well. When the invaders began to come around 1000 BC, just after Jesus allegedly was killed, their mass migration into the south and into the west. And you heard me talking about the Fulani professors and educators and scholars, and we don't know who their names were, but we know that they had this knowledge because we know Europeans reported it. Why they won't release these documents of Europeans who studied there, because they know who these scientists were. They have the documents, but they won't release them because we had Europeans who studied them and they knew, and they also gave us some glimpses of how much knowledge they had, because they also talked about how they were performing eye surgery and so forth and so on. But they talked about the interstellar space. Who were they? Were they Dogon and Fulani, or they mixed Fulani with Dogon? I don't know. But we know that the Fulani and the Dogon mixed, and I'll get more into that as well. Possess this knowledge handed down by their yes, it was handed down, and it came to, by the 13th, 14th centuries, it came to Timbuktu. We know this. It came out of Kempt. We know it came out. Interesting note here. The ancient Egyptian ancestors and Dogon parallel opposites that they focused on. I'll get more into this, brothers and sisters. The ancient Egyptian brothers, the Kemt, they focused on one solar system as the exact as a polar opposite of the Sirius system. The Dogon people concentrated on the Sirius system, and their ancient ancestral brothers of Kemt concentrated on the Orion, but they were aware of the Sirius. But again, brothers and sisters, how did they get this information without modern technology? It was only proven in the middle 1800s. They start to find with telescopes, start to find these solar systems. See, so the contention that the Tubal came and trained the ancient Egyptians and Dogon people is not right. Now, we'll get into this. The pyramids, brothers and sisters, the pyramids are the key. Because the pyramids here give us the example of what happened with the Dogon people. The pyramids are lined up as such where scientists have discovered the relationship between the measurements that they took, the size of the moon, and the relation to the other solar system with the Sirius and the Orion. This is what is interesting, brothers and sisters. How can that be? And when they did measurements, focusing, because the ancient Egyptians said they used this as an observation area to view the space. They had no telescopes or any devices to see, but they could see up into the space. We had these type of scientists who could see into space, and they charted out these systems, brothers and sisters. This is what makes this whole thing so fascinating. Okay, it's funny. Oh, I hope they're gonna start taking this. Oh boy, they're gonna start. They're taking, as we talk right now. They just took one of the systems here I was getting ready to use because they know I'm going to use it, so they removed it. Now I'm going to have to go back. See, okay, this is one, but this is more complicated. I'm trying to find the other one. This shows the two systems, but I'll show this one because I showed this before. This is Sirius as well, but I'm trying to show I want to show you one of the Orion. Oh, I gotta go back to find it because they removed it. Boy, that's not good. That's not good. Okay. This is the Sirius system here, brothers and sisters, from the pyramids that we're talking about in Giza. Okay, the pyramids in Giza. This is what makes this interesting. The pyramid Giza, they said, is used as for a telescope. They can see up into the space from this, and they use this as an observation post to look into the space. And again, they charted the Sirius and also Orion, which is next to it, which is in relationship with the sun. Now, remember what I was telling you before. The ancient Egyptians concentrated on the Orion system and a little bit on the Sirius. But it's our brothers, the Dogon, concentrated on the Sirius. You're going to say, why? I will tell you that in a bit. This is, again, brothers and sisters, how I showed you a picture of this, and it upset some of the brothers here weeks ago. I know I had one Fulani brother who was very upset with me. He said to me, we're about graven images and so forth. I told him, I said, brother, yes, I understand the sensitivities. I know that too. We're not to use that. And this is an educational system that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about glorifying an animal because I know better than it. I'm not a mushrik. But I understand what he was trying to say. But I'm trying to prove a point on how did our African brothers come up with this? Could someone explain this more better than me? How did our African brothers from ancient Kip and the Dogon people come up with information like this? From the pyramids, okay, going from observation posts from the pyramids, this is the desert, excuse me, from the pyramids and they can chart out the space with the human eye. How? Someone tell me. Someone explain this more to me. How can they have this? How can they do this? How can they go from there, from the point when the scientists heard about this, they begin to, now with modern technology, because they have modern technology, they went from the tip, and they shot the beams, or to use these instruments, and they found that this was an observation point to look where you can see Sirius and Orion solar systems. It's in direct line with that. Now you say, well, no, I can go get and put a mound of dirt and point it straight up. No, not really. It's not going to work, because you have to have some other knowledge, because there's rotation of the earth and whatnot. And there's a science to this. Our African ancestors had this science. And so these, at the tip here, these points in geese, you can do the research on this. In geese, these dimensions all fit the dimensions of the relationship of the sun to Sirius, to the relationship of the sun to the solar system Orion. Our brothers charted this out without the modern technology. You're talking about thousands of years before the Tubab actually came. And even when the Tubab came, they got this knowledge from our African brothers. This what makes this so interesting. So this is, again, brothers and sisters, why I'm talking about this, because I want you to see the phenomenon of our knowledge that Subhanahu wa Ta'ala gave us. He gave us knowledge that no one else had, and then others took this from us. To make it even, show you more, the Dogon drew the galaxy as we understand it. How did they get this knowledge, brothers and sisters? When the Europeans found them in the 1800s, they already had this information, and the scientists who came to interview them saw these drawings. And then they saw, and they began to explain to them about the galaxy and the universe. You see here to the bottom, Sirius here, and there's three, there's two that we know of, okay? But there's a third also called Sirius C. We know that, but they just now uncovered that. When the Dogon began to explain this phenomenon, they said there was a third star in this system that you see at the bottom here. And you notice the words. Any of us who understands the language there, Togo, okay, is what? This is the Messina Fulfulde language. Why did our brothers, the Dogon brothers, use this language, which is Messina Fulfulde? That's right, brother, sister. Again, the connection the Fulani have with just about everything that goes on in North Africa and to the east. Just about everything, the Fulani factor is in it. They use Fulani Messina Fulfulde dialect to describe the solar system. See, very interesting. And again, here we got, this is a remake of this. The Dogon people, again, have this drawn out. When the Europeans found them, they had this system drawn out without any instruments. They left Egypt with this. So, again, brothers and sisters, and I'm getting more into this, and it may be mundane to a lot of people, but I'm hoping that those see this, subscribe to my station, and please spread this. Because if you don't find this fascinating, these are your African brothers. We're not talking about the Tubab. We're talking about Africans who have this type of knowledge. These are Black African ancestors who had this knowledge. You should be proud of them. Yes, they're not Muslims, but their scholarship, yes, they're our brothers in brotherhood and our Africanness. Yes, we know they're not, many of them are not Muslims, but when they came across from Egypt, we don't know if they were in Tawheed or not, but something happened to them, which I'll get more into that, to make them where they are. But they had this knowledge, brothers and sisters. This is what is so So interesting. And the pyramids, even they still debate today how the pyramids are built because the dimensions are so precise. We're trying to duplicate that we cannot. The ancient Egyptians said that they were visited. The Dogon people said they were visited from interstellar space. That's right. So now I give you this part of it. I'm going to give you something about the Dogon people, where they are inside Mali. This is the areas inside Mali. Their language is more akin to the Messina Fulfulde dialect, and their dialect as well. But they weigh heavy on words from the Fulfulde language, which is the Messina dialect. So this is the area where they migrated from Egypt. Now, you're going to say, well, yeah, okay, well, I don't know. Yeah, this is a possibility they might have done this, or yes, they might have done that, and so forth and so on. But I'm going to give you something here that is going to, I will give you this other part here. Now, you know what? I had something else here to show. Okay, this is better. This is my heritage, brothers and sisters. You see it here, 1, 2, and 3. We're talking about the Dogon people. This is my heritage. This is an advanced test of my DNA. And we also talk about the Fulani people. Again, it's the number 1. The Nigerian Fulani, that's what they said. They started it all. So that means my mother, when they came out of Egypt, they went into what we call northern Nigeria today, because there's no Nigeria in ancient times. There's nothing like that. So her ancestors went there, and they went into Guinea. From Guinea, they went into Mali. Somebody in my family married somebody from the Dogon people. They married, had children because they have Dogon heritage. They moved further north into Morocco, where they mixed with the Amazigh Tuareg people. You understand? That's why you hear me talk about this. Now this advanced test shows this thing. If you look at number 3, where it says, you see ancient Egyptian. I'm trying to prove a point to tell you that they were not Tubab. Because you have to ask the question, brothers and sisters, if they were Tubab, and when they left Egypt, how did they become black? Because West Africa was not populated. How did West Africa get populated? And how did the Sahara? Because when it opened up, it became very tropical. We're talking about thousands upon thousands of years, 20,000 years past. When it opened up, they began to go trekking to the west for food, water, and to start new families and civilizations and so forth and so on. And that's how they ended up going across. You say, well, okay, I see that. Here's some other proof about this. Brothers and sisters, the Dogon people, the Fulani, the Hausa, the Bambara, the Mende, the Mendinka, the Wolof, the Balanta, you go all the way across the line, the Khan people, the Ga people, the Tiv, Igbo, all left Egypt. And here's a fascinating thing. The African Americans have this genotype, haplogroup E1b. This is the ancient Egyptian royal mummies and ancient Egyptians. This is their type. The West Africans, this is prevalent among the men. Okay. Now, the African Americans have a problem because we have the ancestry of European, because the slave master, you know what they did to our women? They raped our women. But when you do a test of like even my father shows R, which represents Europe, because we have slave master, you know what they did to our women. But when you go further, you look into my father, on my father's side, deeper into the heritage, you'll find E1b. This is the ancient mummies of Egypt. This is the haplogroup here. That's right, brothers and sisters. This is what they uncovered. This is why they're not white. See, they are black. How can you have a white man, a Tubab, ancient Tubab? He doesn't have this, because the Europeans, when they came to invade, their genotype is far different than ours. All the royal mummies have this type to it. And the woman has this, which let me show you this. This is why it's so interesting. They removed it. Did they remove it? No, I don't want to show you this one yet. They removed it. Brothers and sisters, now they're starting to play games. See, they're removing documents out of my thing as we speak now. I will get this in a minute. Here we go. I just put this back in there. The E1B are on the man side, black side. They're all West Africans. The West African men have this particular gene, and Central Africans as well, because they migrated. The woman, like on my mom's side, have the LO. They were all traced again when the Egyptians began to go south. Of course, because of drift and everything else, this is their haplogroup. My mother has one LOA, which comes down to the southern part. Leaving from southern part of Egypt, going across, they went and settled, and then begin to go back up again. So you have the E1B is for the black man and his hair, his chromosomes, right? The woman, we know ancient Egyptians because this LOA, LO1, there's many different LOK. All of these represent what? Black from Egypt. We are ancient Egyptians, brothers and sisters, ancient Egyptians. And now they're proving this. See, they're proving this over and over again with now scientific data. See, so again, I have to go into the history because you want to talk about the Dogon people for 2 minutes, and I cannot do that. I'm a historian. I cannot. I have to give something to my brothers and sisters so you can get a bigger understanding. So when the racists come to you to debate you and show you a drawing, the date of a Tubab Egyptian, you can talk to them and say, well, what is this haplogroup? If it's not E1B, then we know it's not right. No, he's R. Then you know it came from Europe. If it's a female, if it's not LO, okay, LOK, LOA, and LOF, and all this, and B, and so forth, A, and all, you see all these, then they're not ancient Egyptians. They're not ancient Egyptians, brothers and sisters. They're not. See, so that, again, goes to show you something that, about this history that makes it so interesting. And then we go into even more. We got more testing that really shows that is our heritage. European scientists, developed a hair test, just like Sheikh Diop, remember, our great ancestral brother from Senegal. He had the melanin test. The melanin test measures the melanin of the ancient mummies, and they had numbers. When they found the Romans and the Greeks, conquerors, soldiers, and everything, they gave them a number which was much low, but the melanin was real high. We know they were African. The ancient mummies came with a high melanin test. Now, a European scientist developed a test for hair. He had the numbers, brothers and sisters, from they was running from, I think, from 60, which was the lowest, to 90. Numbers, the Europeans, the Asians with straight hair had high numbers, 70, 80, 90, and so forth. Straight hair, 100. Straight hair, 100. Okay, this is the test. Their strains were measured at 100 because he developed this test. If it's 60 or lower, it's African. You take the Nigerian, the Ghanaian, the Togo man, the Congolese, and all that. Their hair strand tested 60 and under. Okay, the ancient Egyptians were under 60. This is the hair strands they found at the ancient mummies. The ancient Egyptians, not the Europeans. They did the European test. They got the European mummies, the rulers that came to the colonizers and became kings there, the soldiers and the mercenaries and all that. Their hair was measured 70, 80, 90, and 100. But the royal mummies and their families and those related to them, their hair strand strength was rated under 60. Most African Americans today, because of mixture, is like 60, 65. Okay. In those days, it was way down. Again, why you say, well, okay, yeah, well, what are you talking about? Because here, Herodias said they were black with woolly hair. See? and again, they don't talk about this man. He was a Tuba, but historian, and he wrote what he saw. This modern time European scientist who developed the hair test verified what Herodias had said about their hair, because their measurements was under 60, making them black Africans. See, so I'm giving you this information and knowledge, brothers and sisters, as I get you prepared to go deeper into, because I'm going to get scientific with you, and you have to bear with me in another segment as well on this. But I'm trying to get you up to speed so you can understand what's going on. And again, brothers and sisters, we go back to this for those who show up. I want you to understand me good. The ancient Egyptian mummies and the ancient Egyptians, who were excluding the invaders like the Romans and the Greeks and the people who came from the north and all that, who were white. We understand them today. We're not talking about their haplogroup, because there are ours and M, or I think not M. I forgot all of their haplotypes. But the ancient Egyptians, men sport E1b and other derivatives from that. That's the Y DNA. That's on the man side. You find this in African Americans and West Africans today and Central Africans. Okay. Now, again, to recap, on the woman's side, the ancient Egyptian woman was where is it at? No, tell me, I've lost it again here. What did I? Okay, yeah, no, yeah, is this it? Yeah, okay. This is also the other map showing where they left and when they began to go up. The L O L1 L1A and so forth and so on. All of these are on the female side, the X chromosome. Ancient Egypt, brothers and sisters. Now, my mother has LO1, okay? LOA, I forgot how, because of all these letters, but she had that. I have relatives who are down in the South, like the late great Nelson Mandela, okay? He has the same type as my mother and what I had and his family. So they're my relatives as well, way down south, because the ancient Egyptians migrated down to the south, okay, and genetic drift and so forth, they developed other chromosomes. Scientists measured that. So we know that the ancient Egyptians on the female side, we understand. I'm giving you so you get the breast on this, who they were, what did they do, and so forth and so on. And again, this is even to show you this migration pattern. This LOA, my mom, that side. All of this ancient Egypt, southern Egypt, they came down from southern Egypt, they go across, then they begin to go west. See, so we know this migration. The African woman, the West African, Central African woman has this LO. The man has L1B. All ancient Egyptian calculations, just to prove to you that they are who they are. They were black people. We have shown you, you see my proof now. You can go over this documentation. Now they uncovered also in the prehistory. This is what they found in graves. These are African men. They are kings of many of the dynasties. They're not Tuba. You can see this. Look even at the hairdress. We have been wearing these type of kufis. We still wear these type of kufis today. This was they found buried. So these are African men. And scientists have proven this. Here, this is this is my ancient ancestor Shabaka. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if this is him or not. I had a picture a good picture of him. No, it's not him. I'm trying to figure where my ancient picture of Shabaka is not there. They uncovered his tomb, and but you get the picture that these are black people. Now you'll say, well, why were the noses defaced? You remember with Napoleon, he saw how quote unquote Negroid they were, so he shot it off because he didn't want that to show, because he was a racist, and they was too black for him. See, so he shot off. He ordered that all the statues have their noses shot off because it pointed to African heritage. He didn't want to show that. See, so then this is another thing. Ramses, the Ramses line. You remember the great movie we saw of Moses and him and Ramses? His haplogroup is African. Again, you have that one, the L1B, the the EL1. I'm always get all these letters mixed up, but he's got this haplogroup. See, so that is something, brothers and sisters. And also, now another scientist came up with another test. He found the cranial, talking about the head. Okay, he took the mummies. He took dead from the dead and their skulls from all over, from Europe, Asia, and so forth, right? And he developed a test. He found the ancient Egyptians' skull measurements or that of West Africans and Central Africans. So again, they were they called Negroid, meaning black. Again, not European. So again, don't be fooled, brothers and sisters, when you see the white races. They'll say about the Europeans, yes, the Europeans died there because they were there as conquerors and so forth. And then after Kemet died, there was a migration of Arabs. Everything. And they pushed the black people down to the south. And they died there, yes. But that's not the ancient Egyptians. And they're far different. And blood type and everything else. So this is why I said the proof by hair, I gave you that proof to show you by proof by hair. The hair strand, 60, is the number, the lowest number. The Africans today have 60 or less. The ancient Egyptian, their measurement is 60 or less. The African Americans today, because of the mixtures with different races and people, some of them are 60, 65, 70 because of mixtures. But some African Americans still have a lot of African genes, from originality. Their strands may be measured 55 to 60 or even lower. But many of the Africans today have even 60 today. The ancient Egyptians tested 60 and under. See, this is all we have all this evidence to prove, and I'm trying to make a point to get you caught up so you can understand about your ancestors and everything, and how the ancient Egyptians are black, to prove that when the Fulani left, they were black. When the Hausa left, they were black. When the Wolof left, they were black. When the Jolof left, they were black people. When the Mandinka left Egypt, they were black. The Mende people, when they left, they were black. When the Tiv and the Yoruba and the Akan, all of them, when they left Egypt, they were black, and it's still black today. And we've proven that again by DNA. You saw my proof, and also by the hair strand. So this is the argument again. I'm not faulting our brothers and sisters who talk about these issues from the United States, because they give you a 5-minute, 10-minute course, and some give you a long course, but you still walk away confused. You don't know what's going on. I've given you depth proof to talk about the ancient Egyptians. It's okay to say they're black, but you got to come with something, because the modern day Egyptians and many of the white racists are saying it's not the case. Now I gave you ammunition so you can fight them back. See, and a side note of this, when they uncovered the information about the Dogon people and about the Cyrus and all the other stuff, okay? They uncovered all this. They came back with the same racist origin again, like they did when I was in college, when they used to tell me every time there was a civilization they found, they always say Greeks founded it. They said that the Greeks came to cross the Sahara into present-day Mali and mixed with a racist term called river Negroes. Incredible, isn't it? Because they can't explain how black people can have this kind of knowledge here, so they have to have somebody white in order for them to say that's why they gained the knowledge, because they had to mix with some Tubab in order to gain this knowledge. It's not the case, brothers and sisters. We know this is not the case. And here's a doggone brother here, and the drawings and these hieroglyphics is germane to the doggone people. And now you start to get this. And I'm going to get in the next episode of this, I'm going to get deeper into this to show you even more the complexities of the knowledge that we had. And it's complex. It's very complex. See? And so this is something, brothers and sisters, again, we drew this system before the Europeans came on this. We drew this system of the Cyrus system, and I wish I had the other one. I have to go in there and find it. They drew the Cyrus system here, brothers and sisters. There's A, B, and C. They found only the outline of it, but the C is there. The doggone people told them, and I'll give you the Fulani names of this next time, inshallah ta'ala, when I covered the second part of this. The doggone people explained about the Cyrus, and the Cyrus was not discovered until the late 1800s, and it was in the Teresa times that they began to even find more. But how they also realized the system was correct by their measurements, modern day measurements by telescope and everything else, which they did not have. See, so when you start doing research on them, it may be confusing to a degree, but you can understand, because now you heard me talk about this, you can kind of get a good indication. And again, to follow up on this, the measurements of the area of the pyramids of where they call Giza, okay, Giza. This is where the findings of the system in relation to the sun, and it's a direct match. The distance, the size of the sun versus that of the star Sirius, and in the star system of Orion. They have it listed, and in this measurements of the pyramids. The pyramids were used, they said, the ancient Egyptians wrote that they used the pyramids to what? To gaze into the interstellar space, and they charted out these solar systems. Incredible. That means the human eye. That means me or you, we get on these observation points here and we look, but we didn't have this. Subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them this knowledge because they looked up into the space and they charted it out. They said they built the pyramids to a degree on what they saw. So that way it'll be something for us to ponder in our generations today, after thousands of years, right? So they made these measurements, and then when the scientists began to see the circumferences and the distance between the sun and Sirius, the sun and Orion, they found that the calculations that the Egyptians left for that is true by the pyramids. So it still may be kind of confusing, but I'm giving you this information so now you will have it to help you to understand this phenomenon, about the African phenomenon, this knowledge. And again, brothers and sisters who will join me late on this and who will see this in the future, inshallah ta'ala. The phenomenon is now starting to reoccur. Terrence Howard, the famous actor who was, I don't know what this program, Empire. Yeah, that's the name of it, Empire, which I think is, I don't know if they still have it today, if it's still going on, but he was in that, light-skinned brother and everything. Suddenly came up with knowledge about energy. It didn't make sense even when I listened to it. He was ridiculed till the scientists came, two of them came and said what he said was correct. Now the people shut up, and now they're looking at him trying to figure out where did he get this knowledge. The second, the boy, the young African American, 12 years old, can't read and write Arabic, right? Suddenly comes home from school, picks up the Quran in the Arabic language and begin to recite it. And he memorized the whole Quran in the Quranic language of Arabic, okay? This is the hardest Arabic to learn. He recites that and memorized it in 4 months. We had 2 cases, an African-American woman and a African-American young woman. She, again, 12, 13, 14 years old, and a Nigerian girl. Both have extraordinary knowledge. The African-American girl suddenly comes up with all this knowledge about medical. She's going to medical school at the age of 13. Our young daughter from Nigeria, she went to a conference with children or young adults. She blew everybody away with her knowledge on physics that she did not get from the high learned schools from Harvard and Oxford and all that. See what I'm talking about? This African phenomenon is starting to return to us. Those people who possess the doggone trait, like I do, explains things that I told you weeks back, things I saw that didn't make sense to me, but I reported it. I drew maps. I did all these things. Now I understand where I got it. My sister began to tell me some things too I didn't know. But my mother is on my mother's side where you have the doggone. As you saw, I gave you proof of my DNA. And I have doggone heritage. My sister was telling me here a couple of weeks ago when we talked about that. She said, Mom, my mother, because this is where her heritage come from. She was telling my daughter many times, she said, look, you're pregnant now. And my sister said she had not had any tests. She said she'd been feeling good. There's no problem. She had a couple of kids. She said, I'm okay, Mom. Then she go get tested. My mom was correct. She was pregnant. The doggone people possess a knowledge of the circulation system. That's another thing that they charted out that they blew away the Europeans. My mother seemed to have this knowledge as well because my mother explained it to my daughter, to my sister, and my sister relayed information to me. She said, my mom used to tell her straight out. She said, look, you're with the baby now. And my mother said, no. No, my daughter said, my sister said, no. Her name is Linda. No, this is not. There's no way. And then she found out she was pregnant. So the doggone people have a certain amount of knowledge. Brothers and sisters, we should get tested if you can afford it so you can find out your heritage. Here's the hieroglyphics again. These things here, there's a science to this. We have a brother on TV, on YouTube now. I'm trying to remember his name now. He's deciphered this as well. He didn't go to school for all this. This is the African phenomenon I'm talking about, brothers and sisters. Subhanahu wa ta'ala is starting to give us the knowledge again. When he gave it to us, we abused it, and he took it from us. And he allowed the Tubab to colonize us and to run over us and to enslave us and to kill us. Now he's starting to give this knowledge back. This brother deciphered the codes of the hieroglyphics himself. This is one of the things he was talking about here. And he wrote a book about it. And he said it was right on. Again, how did he get this knowledge? How did the young African-American boy get the knowledge to read the Quran in the hardest Arabic you can? The Quranic Arabic that's in the Quran is the hardest Arabic to learn. It's difficult. He didn't speak it. He couldn't read it, but came home one day and started to read it. We had the 2 sisters, young daughters. How about them? One African-American. Her knowledge of medical at the early age without proper schooling. Now she's going to medical school because her testing and her knowledge was so great. How did she get that? She's only 13 years old and she's going to medical school now. Our young daughter from Nigeria, her physics, how did she get all this? She blew away people that's much older than her. And she won this contest by a land margin, okay? And people talking about that. This is what I'm talking about. This phenomenon is starting to return to us, brothers and sisters. We're starting to see this. So this should give you some pride to understand. If you keep following me, brothers and sisters, I will give you as much information as I can as I get it. And when I see it and understand it, I'll translated for you so that way you can have the understanding. I gave you the things about the ancient Egyptians and about all of us coming from West Africa. We are ancient Egyptians. We are ancient Egyptians, brothers and sisters. We are ancient Egyptians. You see my heritage here, number 3, Egyptian. There it is. You see Dogon. The Dogon people left. That means my heritage. And the Fulani, Nigerian Fulani is the origin of the Fulani people of my heritage. But someone mixed with the Dogon, and my mom's side, because this is on my mom's side. So someone mixed with the Dogon people. That's why the Dogon is prevalent in my blood today. But you see here, number 3, you see Egyptian. This is mine. This is my testing here. You see the Egyptian. That means my father, his type is the E1B. Remember? I showed you. And my mother is LOA, which is ancient Egyptian. The woman carries this LO1, LOA, LOB, CDF. There's many. These are all genotypes of African people that the ancient Egyptians had. So we're ancient Egyptians, brothers and sisters, all of us. I don't care if you're Tiv. I don't care if you're Yoruba. I don't care if you're Fulani, if you're Hausa, if you're Bambara, Senike, okay, or Wolof or Jolof. You are ancient Egyptian, Mandinka, Mende, all of us. And matter of fact, they talked about this in one, let me see. Yeah, here. Now I'm getting ready to close because I'm long today, but I have to go give you this first test, give you this first information to help you to decipher what I'm going to talk about in a couple of days about the Dogon people and their knowledge. Here's the other parts of this, and you'll see this. I want you to study this. I don't have time to break it down all the way, but you see here they talk about the Mende people. This is the ancient Egyptians and how the how they left Egypt. They go south and then they go to the west. These are all the calculations of our ancestors from ancient Egypt. You find them today in the Mende. You find them in the Mendinka. Okay, all of us. You find the West Africans, all. You'll find these types of traits in you, and it came out from ancient Egypt. And you can look at this chart. I give you more proof today to show you that how they migrated from ancient Egypt in a big migration. A big migration. They said the migration began to end around 1000 BC. That means it's approximately about 30 to 40 years when Jesus allegedly, according to the Christians, was killed. We didn't say that. We say that he was lifted up. Subhanahu wa ta'ala lifted him for him to return. But that's another story in itself. But about 1000 BC, then the migration ended up, start to subside. But we know now by the DNA testing that they all originated out from East Africa, okay, out of Egypt. We know this. We see this now by even this is even more complicated testing. You can review this later and do your research. Now you will have it from me and so forth and so on. And this should give you the impetus, do more of your study. And you look at you look at this and you go from there and you start to run with it, brothers and sisters, because this is a very more scientific talk. I'm going to maybe boring many people may not like this, but I want to give this to you because it's important to show that we had knowledge, and this phenomenon of extreme knowledge is starting to come up with us again today. As you heard me talk about, we have things happening on this earth with Black people all over the place that don't make sense. We didn't go to school for this. None of us, these people, none, the little kids, the Terrence Howard, the famous actor, he didn't go to school. All of a sudden came up with all his knowledge about kinetic energy. It didn't make sense. But now it makes sense because the scientists prove that he's right. And so we starting to see this. So now you understand why I call it the African phenomenon, because it is a phenomenon. It is a phenomenon, brothers and sisters. It is a phenomenon. It's a testament to Subhanahu wa ta'ala, who gave us this knowledge first. We educated the world, no doubt about that. we educated the world. We educated it. So this is, brothers, sisters, a hard-hitting situation. How you doing, my dear brother? Thank you very much for showing up. I appreciate it a lot, my dear brother. And I'm hoping that your family's doing well as well, and all of you here as well. Hoping that you all are blessed by Subhanahu wa Taala, and that that Subhanahu wa Taala bless you and your families and whatnot. And so far, Kwesi, thank you, my dear brother, for showing up, and others who will show up in the future and everything. I'm hoping Subhanahu wa Ta'ala find you in good health. And many of us who are Muslims, we just finished our Ramadan, which is great. I just finished my additional 6 days. And boy, it's rough when you get old, but I'm happy. I just finished it last night. So today, I can go back to my regular schedule. And today I was kind of a bad boy. I started to eat things maybe I shouldn't have eaten, you know what I mean? But I eat a lot of food today, and I'm usually, I still got some of that American in me, and I ate, I had nuts, I had this, I had that stuff I haven't had, for almost about 36 days. So I drink coffee today. I couldn't drink coffee before, and so today was one of those days where I did a lot of binge eating, and I'm gonna get hurt, for that. But Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, ask for forgiveness. But I still got some of that American in me. I want to eat certain things. So today I did. I eat nuts. I eat these cookies. I mean, I went crazy today. So I'm gonna have to ask Subhanahu wa Ta'ala to forgive me for this abuse, because I ate too much food today, no doubt. Oh, how you doing, my sister? Labina, how you doing? This is my sister here. Her and I grew up in Compton together, and she right around the corner from me. We learned here about a year, or maybe more than that, I'm not sure, that we're cousins. She's a Fulani sister, so we're cousins. And our DNA, we found out, and here she's lived around the corner from me, and we went to school together and everything since 5 years old. And I've been knowing her. She's from Compton, California, like me, and she's Fulani as well. So thank you, my dear sister, for showing up, and I really appreciate that. And I'm happy that you showed up today. So my brothers and sisters, I got to end here. I'm getting ready to got Maghrib, Salat Maghrib coming. So please stay tuned for the next episode of this. Brothers and sisters, please spread my tape around if you can, and subscribe, and those to support your brother in his endeavor to educate our African people, so that we will have this knowledge, and so forth and so on. And I need people to subscribe, so that way we'll be brought up to speed, because we've been killed by the genocidal racists, whether it's other Black people who are taking sides of racists, who are talking against the information about Black Egyptians. We have racist Arabs, Europeans, Almazir, the Asians. I mean, we have all this going on. So we have to combat this, not with anger, but with knowledge. And that's how you can destroy their narrative, by their knowledge. And we need to do that. So you follow me. I'll try to bring you up to speed, because we should understand what's going on, why this African phenomenon is starting to return to you. Again, you guys look up Terrence Howard, the famous actor. He came up with some stuff that's bizarre. And now we'll see. I think Terrence Howard is Fulani. I'm almost certain of that. I bet you got Dogon. If he did his DNA, I bet you'll find, if he takes it to Jet Match, they do in-depth analysis. They'll find these Fulani and Dogon. I'm almost certain of that, because now the people who are coming up with all this stuff have this Fulani Dogon heritage. I saw this. It's starting to happen. And they're coming up with this young brother, this another brother, I saw him too with mathematics. All of a sudden, never did anything in school. And then when he got to high school, all of a sudden he became a genius in mathematics. African American, he's Fulani. He did his heritage, he's Fulani. But suddenly, and now even his teachers are mystified, because they said, look, you were flunking out in your junior high. You hardly did any schoolwork. Now you come to high school, your mathematics is high enough to go up for PhD. That's how astute it was. So how did this young brother that came out of, I can't remember where it was, Dallas, he came out of the hood, and suddenly now is a genius in mathematics. Brothers and sisters, the African phenomenon is starting to return to us. The knowledge, Subhanahu wa ta'ala, is starting to forgive us. He's starting to restore this knowledge back to us. We're starting to see that. We're starting to see this, and I'm hoping, brothers and sisters, that you got something out of this today, and you stay tuned for the next episode of this. Spread this tape, have others to subscribe. I greatly appreciate this. So I got to get prepared here for my prayer, first evening prayer. So thank you very much, my dear brothers and sisters, and stay in tune to the next. I'll get more in depth. Now I'll cover the real interesting part about the Dogon people and their knowledge. I'll give you the evidence. Break it down for you, translation of it, and how they use the Fulani language, the Messina dialect, okay? Messina for full day dialect to describe the outer space. Again, the Fulani factor is in this equation again. Okay, my dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.